Hello! Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Robin, otherwise known as Paperback Fern. And if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. It's good to see you. Today, I'm going to go over a brief reading recap of all the books I've read so far in 2022. Now, my collection of books I've gotten through is quite small. I have 6 of them here. It's only been 6 months, and I can read about 1 book per month, so I'm not too upset with myself. But I have a nice, small little handful. All but one are poetry collections. I am an avid reader of poetry. I am a poetry author myself, so it's something I like to continue reading to further my own writing, and just because I like reading poetry. I'm going to go over the first books I read, so starting with January, moving into February. I don't think I read a book in March, and then April, May. June, however, we are not doing. I know it is June at the time of me filming this video, but I am participating in Pride Readathon. I have a post over on my Instagram. I can link it down below for you to look at. But the basis for this Pride Readathon is to read a work by an author who is in the LGBT community, or a book where the characters are part of the LGBT community. Basically just broaden your reading tastes with more inclusivity. That's what I'm participating in for this month, and I'll be doing a reading recap probably on the first week of July for all the books that I've read in June. Anyways, let's get started with the first book I read. I think I read 2 books in January. Yes. So this is my reading journal. I plan to do a video sometime about it, but I read Honeybee first. Yeah, so Honeybee was a Woman Love Woman story poetry collection that briefly touched on the loving before going into the confessional poetry of heartbreak. And it was pretty good. It's by Trista. I have read The Dogs I've Kissed by Trista. It was her first work that I've ever read, and I fell in love with it immediately. So I was happy to get my hands on this book. As you can see, I've marked it up pretty well. I have conflicting feelings over it. When I first read it, I gave it, I think, 5 out of 5 stars. The second time reading it, though, I gave it more of like 4.5 out of 5 stars. Simply because it didn't have the same awe feeling that I had when I first read it, but it was still a very good collection. There are some poems titles in here, over here. Like this one says 29 days. There are some in here that say like, I don't know, 48 maybe? I don't know the numbers anymore. But it's a countdown. And it isn't until you get towards the end that you realize what the countdown is for. And specifically on page 104, which is the 29 days one, I have 2 lines highlighted and a little sticky note that says, ouch. But it says, the morning you marry your true love, I will have a mouthful of regret. Maybe it will be more than a mouthful. I loved it. I loved it. So before I had my own breakup, a lot of heartbreak poetry just didn't hit me the same. And then I think this was the first heartbreak-themed poetry collection I picked up since the breakup. And just every single piece seemed to hit so hard. I think that's what made the book so much better because of how much I related to it. So 4.5 stars out of 5 for Honeybee by Trista. The next book I read in January was the single non-poetry collection, Imagine Me by Tahereh Mafi. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. Imagine Me is part of the Shatter Me series, which I started reading, oh gosh, in I think 8th grade. I read the first three books in the series, and a lot of us for many years thought that was where the series ended. And then Tahereh came out with, I don't know how many other books in the series, but this is the very last one. It closes off the series. I need to reread it. I need to reread the whole series because it's been about a year since between each book that I've read. So as much as I love this series, this book just didn't hit it for me simply because I didn't remember a lot of it, unfortunately. But I know that I would love it if I remembered it more. So I do plan to do a reread of the series because I loved it so much. Highly recommend. The book I read next, The Bitter End by Kaliane and Faye, is a short poetry collection about the heartbreak of a relationship that didn't quite get to be a relationship. So it's kind of missed opportunities and the heartbreak of not taking those chances, I guess. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I didn't like it very much. Kaliane is a wonderful poet with her recent work. Unfortunately, this book is a couple years old. Let me see when it was published. So this was published in 2019. Kaliane's newer work is some of my favorite, actually. Unfortunately, the work that's included in this collection, not so much my favorite. It's very short pieces, so they all have sort of the same thing. I feel like they're lackluster, that they lack a lot of imagery, descriptive language. I think they could be more thought out and more developed, and they're just kind of like thoughts unfinished. But I did highlight a few things that I did like. Your name was one stuck on my tongue from that very first moment, and I repeated it over and over and over until it felt like home inside my mouth. So I really like lines where it talks about saying things, like tasting things in your mouth, or like we practice swallowing each other's accents, which is a quote from Honeybee. It makes me make the shapes and those actions with my mouth. So like swallowing accents, I imagine myself like swallowing someone's breath of air or something. I don't know, but they're some of my favorite things. I don't know. I look forward to if Kaliane releases another collection, because I would buy it in a heartbeat, because I really, really, really do enjoy her newer work. This just wasn't my cup of tea. But if you like short heartbreak poetry, this is probably a good read for you. It's short, it's sweet, it's simple, even though it says bitter. It's good. In April, I read Coffee Days and Whiskey Nights by Parker Lee. So Coffee Days Whiskey Nights is a short poetry, or kind of long poetry collection of short poetry pieces about alcohol abuse, body dysphoria, not dysmorphia, gender dysphoria, and heartbreakish. I again did not like this book. Parker writes just the same as their spouse Amanda Lovelace writes, who wrote Women Are Some Kind of Magic series. So the princess saves herself in this one, the witch doesn't burn in this one. I can't think of any of their other titles, but they write in the same style of short poetry that I don't really care for. Unfortunately, this book was very much hit or miss for me, but I did highlight some good things that I liked. This page I marked. It's not because I liked it. Hang on, let me find one that I did. My tongue has memorized the shape of each letter. That, like I said before, when I was talking about the bitter end, I love lines that talk about in the mouth. Like, my tongue has memorized the shape of each letter. I'm actively thinking with each word that I'm speaking, like, how would my tongue trace over the letter T? Like, I don't know, it makes me think, and they're one of my favorite lines. Another line that I liked was, my body is the most uncomfortable thing that I wear, page 83. Another thing that I liked, as you notice, the pages flip from black to white, and then when you get a bit closer, you can see that there's this little detail on the bottom of white pages, and a little detail on the bottom of the black pages. I like that because the darker pages had more of the darker poems, and the lighter pages had more of the lighter poetry. Other than that, I really didn't like this book. I didn't like the style. There is one poem, it talks about oozing pores and like pimple type language. The most disgusting thing I've ever read. I didn't like it whatsoever. I was very uncomfortable reading it. Good imagery, I guess, but just gross. I don't know. Didn't like it very much. The style, some of the language, and just, not overall my cup of tea. So 3 out of 5 stars for Coffee Days Whiskey Nights. Books that I read in May. I read Pangaea by Hinnah Mian. I think I did a short little review of some of these books in the poetry book unboxing. So if you watched that already and you're coming back to this and you repeat myself, apologies. So Pangaea by Hinnah Mian is a collection of poetry about the body. It's feeling whole while in a relationship, or empty when they end and feeling like you don't belong in what's supposed to be your home, or places that are your home, or places that were your home, or places that are your home that don't feel like your home. I really enjoyed the first half of this collection, and not even the first half, kind of the first quarter. 3 out of 5 stars. Hinnah, she's a very brilliant poet. Like, I love the length of these poems. I like the word choice. I love the way things are fleshed out. And it doesn't feel very lackluster like all the other short poetry does. Unfortunately, though, the latter half of the book, where it was talking more about feeling whole in relationships, I'm not sure why. It wasn't bad writing, so, or maybe I just didn't relate to it as much as I guess I thought I would. But the first 35 pages are some of my favorites, where it talks about Hinnah's culture. And I highlighted a couple lines. I know the very first poem is titled I Explode in Quiet. It is probably the best poem out of this entire collection. I don't want to read it because I don't want to get flagged on YouTube, but it's very good. I loved it, and I highly recommend you read it. The first half of the collection is about gun violence and being a person of color in America. So I'd be careful when reading the first half, but if you are okay with reading it, I highly, highly, highly recommend. Great collection. Fortunately, I didn't like the rest of the book, so that's why I got 3 out of 5 stars. But I would be down to read more of Hinnah's work. So yeah. The second book for May that I read was The Surrender Theory. This is a book that I've been waiting for like ever. I pre-ordered it back in November, I think it was, and I got it back in February. So I finished this collection just recently, and I mean, I don't even think I have to explain. 5 out of 5 stars, bro. Conlon is a poet I've been following for a couple years. I have their first poetry collection, Cavity. It's their little chapbook, which is no longer being sold, I don't think. So I was very happy to have something new from Caitlin. And phenomenal writing. Like, the length of these poems, insane. The content of these poems, the formatting, I love Caitlin's work. Like, this book kills me. It's a collection of heartbreak with relationships. So, like, romantic relationships and family relationships. Because at the time of these poems, the story takes place, Caitlin was going through a breakup at the same time that her grandmother passed away. And I think this collection hit so hard for me because, one, of my own breakup, and because just before I got my hands on this book, in February, my grandmother passed away. So reading this collection, I was very, like, sure the heartbreak from relationship poems got to me, but it was also the loss of a loved one that got to me. Like, on page 115, it's called After, titled After. I have a line highlighted. It says, I never thought sleeping across the hall from you was a luxury until our conversations moved to the cemetery, or more often, my car at dusk. And I think it was that line. There are many lines where I read it, the poems, I read it, and I just had to stop. I couldn't continue. There were many times that I've teared up reading this. I'm pretty sure once I got to After, I lost it because of just the fact that this poetry collection couldn't have come at a better time. There's not much I can say. Like, I know for a collection that I loved so much, I don't have much to say about it, but just trust me. If you like poetry, get this book. Like, get it. Get it, get it, get it, get it, get it. Please. I'm begging you to get this. I know I should be begging you to get my own work, but no. This goes on my best books of 2022 list. Great book. These are all the books that I read in 2022 so far. Like I said, I did read another book, and I'll be reading hopefully another handful of more books in June for the Pride Readathon. But yeah, that is all I have for you today. Let me know what books that you read so far in 2022. Do we read some of the same ones? If you like poetry, maybe. If you don't like poetry, probably not. I don't read a lot of novels at this current moment. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my tangents and my rants and my, I don't know, half thought out book reviews. I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye-bye!